Welcome to Digital Marketing Intelligence for Shopify Ask the Experts, our bi-weekly live show and podcast that features expert interviews and case studies to show you what to do and what's new in Shopify and e-commerce digital marketing for 2022 and beyond. Ask questions, suggest topics, and grow faster with actionable insights and proven strategies from the world's leading Shopify and e-commerce marketing experts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Digital Marketing Intelligence for Shopify Ask the Experts. I'm Marissa Morgan. I'll be your show host today, and I'm very excited to welcome you to another episode of our weekly podcast and show. Today, we're talking about how COVID put the digital transformation and direct-to-consumer e-commerce in the spotlight. Our guest expert is a CEO. He's also an e-commerce leader, and I'm excited to welcome him to the show to explain some of the longer-term effects of this pandemic and the shift that it has had, not only on your brand, but brands across the world, and certainly on a lot of brick and mortar stores that are now going digital, and a lot of digital stores that are really changing up their digital marketing strategy as we continue on in 2022. Be sure to stick around as well, because at the end of every talk, we always share our Engage digital marketing news of the week. It's a tip, it's a trend, it's a piece of news. And today, since our expert is the CEO of a fantastic agency, and I'll share that info in just a moment, we're going to pick his brain a little bit about the perks and the benefits of Shopify Plus and how he's used Shopify Plus to help his clients grow and scale. All right, before we get started, a quick mention that we are ramping up to launch our new app, SMS Messaging for Shopify stores, in just a matter of days. With a 98% open rate versus 20%, right? SMS marketing at 98%, email marketing at about 20% open rate. SMS messaging is a must-have for any business. And our app makes it so easy for Shopify store owners to not only build their customer list, but to promote new products, to grow subscribers, to increase their sales, and also to use automated marketing to grow and scale their businesses. Our SMS messaging app is also no-code support bots, which means you don't need a big technical staff to integrate it into your current digital marketing strategy. We're going to be kicking off our rollout very, very soon, and we're going to be offering a 30-day free trial, which will also give you 500 free messages to use, so you can take the Engage SMS Messaging for Shopify Stores app for a test drive and make sure that it's the right fit for your business. You've got nothing to lose except a huge amount of business to gain. So keep an eye out. Make sure that you follow Engage, that's NGAGGE, on LinkedIn for our updates on our new SMS messaging for Shopify rollout happening in May of 2022. All right, let's get started. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest. His name is Tom West, and he is based out of Austin, Texas. However, we chatted before the show. He is not a Longhorn fan, but he's an Indiana Hoosiers fan, and we'll find out more about why that is the case. If you don't know who Tom is, you need to. He is the CEO of OneLive, and he is also a career e-commerce leader who got his start leading Dell.com in the late 90s and also running multiple e-commerce businesses over the last 20 years. OneLive is Shopify's largest partner, delivering end-to-end e-commerce as a service to mid-market and growth brands that do not have in-house capabilities. Having launched and run an impressive 1,600 Shopify Plus stores, OneLive has seen it all in terms of what it takes to make a successful direct-to-consumer business using the Shopify platform. And a fun fact about Tom is that he actually once completed the Hawaii Ironman. Tom, you sound like obviously a crazy athlete with some, crazy endurance and tenacity, but I feel like you've taken that into your career as well. What an impressive background you've had. Share with us, what obviously led you to go from obviously starting Dell to now your position as the CEO of OneLive. Tell us a little bit about that journey, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, thank you, Marissa, for having me, and it's great to be here. And my journey in e-commerce really started with Michael Dell, and it very in the early days. I think Michael had the vision and believed that the direct to customer model was the model because you didn't have a middleman, you didn't have to deal. You got a chance to get direct feedback from your customers. It was essentially opening your processes to your customers, and the better your processes were, the better it's going to be. And he believed in it early, and it was right. We ended up turning Dell.com into the crown jewel of Dell, and really helping transform the way people buy technology. And for me personally, an awakening, because what I love about e-commerce is it's obviously highly scalable, but it's also very data driven. So you can tell exactly what's happening at any time. You can test and improve and constantly get better. Keep the winners, kill the losers, and constantly get get better as you build your direct to customer experience. And so that's been the fun. I've had a chance to lead a number of companies myself in that regard, but what I love about One Live is we really get to do it for a lot of growth brands who just frankly don't have the internal capability to be able to drive it, and it's not their core competency. And so we're very proud to be able to represent some really great brands in terms of their e-commerce platform.
And speaking of great brands, I see good old Willie Nelson on the office there behind you. I know you're a big music and sports fanatic, because many of your clients are in that niche, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah, we're very fortunate. Actually, Willie was one of our first clients, and it's a great example of having a really truly global brand, but really not having the capability or interest to be able to monetize it from a direct to customer basis. And so, we built very early on Willie's website, his tour site, his e-commerce store, his fan club, and his VIP programs, and we run and manage all those for him, as well as about nearly 900 other national and global acts, global artists, and their stores. And so we're fortunate to do that for those folks, as well as a number of NBA and NFL teams that
Cool.
manage their team stores. So for me, kind of as a sports fan and a music fan, those are my passions. And to be able to combine that with e-commerce, I mean, literally, I can't imagine anything better.
It sounds like a perfect blend of not only your passion, but also your talent and your experience for sure. Well, I think this is a great place to start. I wouldn't mind actually talking a little bit about the sports and music world and how that was impacted by the pandemic, because that's really what you're going to kind of walk us through today. Some of the things that obviously COVID has ultimately changed forever, right? And some of the changes that have really put the digital transformation and this D2C world front and center, not only for people who are already there, but for people who are now realizing they need to be a part of it. So, for our audience who may be watching our video version, I'm going to pop up on screen just a quick little bulleted kind of a checklist of a few of the things we're going to visit today. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'll go through this with you. But again, we're talking about how this COVID period has really impacted brands and the importance now that has been placed on D2C brands. So we'll talk about how, obviously, I mentioned COVID has significantly increased the importance of D2C. And I think, again, Tom, your experience all the way dating back to Dell.com is really a perfect match for what the world has presented us with. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk about how sports and music has been really changed, because for a very long time, touring stopped. So we'll learn, Tom, how you helped your clients overcome that. We'll talk about how e-commerce ultimately saved many brands. And we'll talk a little bit too about remote work and how home delivery is going to be pretty much here to stay. So, Tom, let's talk about the immediate and I guess you can say most prominent changes that you think COVID really brought about for D2C businesses and brands?
That was a total wake up call. I think, our brick and mortar clients that are restaurants or consumer product clients, woke up one day and their stores were empty or closed, or they had to go entirely remote. The same thing was true with our music and sports clients, where just one day, the next day, their biggest source of income, live events, was eliminated. And so there was a need to have to figure out, what else can I do during these times? And so a lot of innovative work has occurred in the last couple of years related to digital. But I think, the idea of e-commerce and being able to monetize the relationship you have with your fans or your customers is just such an important part of the equations. And the organizations, the brands that were set up to do it really scaled. Our average site over the last 3 years has averaged 54% a year growth rate. Think about that number, 54%, which is, think about 3 times the industry average. So those that were set up well and were ready, they really got to see the value. And e-commerce, instead of representing a really small percentage of their income, was now all of their income. And unfortunately, those that weren't ready are really scrambling, trying to find ways to make things happen. And I think, we have some unique aspects of the One Live model that allow that to happen a little bit more easily, I think, and which is why a lot of folks that have been trying to improve their DTC operations have been coming to us over the last couple of years.
You know what's interesting, Tom, about your client list? When people think about brands, they don't immediately think about music acts or, performers who really are their own brand. They think about Nike or Amazon or Mac or Dell. They think
Mhm.
about tangible products, or they think about services. They don't always think to the creative side of the world, or the professional athletes. Are there, other than the fact that, the live concert, portion of things was taken away, are there any other, specific challenges that you have experienced or that you've helped, that particular set of clients overcome when it comes to the e-commerce side of their
Yeah.
business?
No, I think probably one of the biggest thematic challenges has been, my personal belief is Web 2.0 really has been a negative for creators, because what it's done is it's become, for those that aren't familiar with the kind of the definition of Web 2.0, it's really the creation of all these social platforms and the social graph.
Oh.
And what Web 2.0 has done is really disintermediated the artists directly from their fans. So all of a sudden they're building a fan base on Facebook, or they're building it on Instagram, or even on Amazon. And unfortunately, those platforms are the ones who are getting the value of building out those audiences more so than the act. In fact, the act has to pay money to advertise to their own fans on those
Yeah.
platforms, which just really doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it in the long run. And I think that's a big part of what Web 3.0 will deliver, is much more of a direct access between the artist, the sports team, even the brick and mortar brand to its audience. I mean, we have restaurants, we have consumer products, consumer packaged good companies, we have fashion brands, we have cosmetic brands that utilize our platform because they're all trying to do the same thing. They all want to know their audience. They all want to build their audience, and they all want to grow their DTC presence because, those are your people. When we talk a little bit about Willie, he has something called his Luck Club. The Luck Club is his fan base. These are the diehards that anytime Willie does something, he does an annual picnic, as an example, which is going to be held July 4th this year in the new Q2 stadium here in Austin.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. And Willie's the first ever music act. But, the first thing we did was we went to the Luck Club and gave them access. And that's what Willie wants. He wants his best fans in the front row because they've earned it. And he wants his best fans to have the best gear and the access to anything that he's doing and his content. And so I think that's kind of the future, is how direct to customer can better connect the brand directly to its audience, and create more and more value with that direct relationship.
I think that the point you just made really ties into a few of the other points of view that we've shared throughout the series this year, which is ultimately, in today's competitive marketplace, there is a huge importance that needs to be placed on the customer experience, right? Ultimately, it's the customer experience that is going to lead to more loyal fans, repeat purchases. The customer experience, of course, everybody has a bad experience. You're going to tell 10 people. You have a good experience, you're maybe going to tell one, if anybody, right? So it's just even more important to make sure that customers have a good experience, whether it's on your website or whether it's through, a social media channel or a program. And one thing we've also talked a lot about during this series is, if it works for a brand, this idea of a subscription-based model. And in your case, what you're talking about is similar to a subscription-based, but it's really called like a VIP-based, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the more that someone feels like they are noticed, appreciated, that they're different, that they are special, the more likely they are to come back again and make repeat purchases and continue to be a part of what that artist is doing, and why that's so important. That's great. I really love that example. I also would love to be there. Gosh, Willie, he's such an icon. I remember living in Austin, hearing all kinds of stories. If you guys are
Yeah.
just joining us, I'm right now in the Midwest, Minneapolis, and I learned Tom is originally from the Midwest, hence the Indiana Hoosiers fan. But I also spent some time in Austin, certainly the city known for its live music. This is so fun. So let's talk. I have two questions for you, and maybe you have some little tidbits or insights you can share. We are very excited at Engage because we're going to be launching our SMS messaging for Shopify app coming here in May of 2022. How important do you think SMS messaging has become in the last, 6 months or a year? And what results have you seen on your end, as an agency, using SMS marketing versus traditional email marketing? Have you
Yeah.
found SMS to be something successful for your
No
brand?
question, it's the future, and it's the way, particularly the younger generations are just used to interacting. And so
Mhm.
I think if a brand doesn't have it as part of their portfolio, they've got to find a way. But at another level, I think that it also can become something that becomes overwhelming and an annoyance for brands that aren't really tracking their customer experience. So I really highly encourage, we highly encourage our brands to really think thoughtfully about the customer experience. I mean, you go back to, in those early days of Dell, Michael personally got involved in the customer experience we were creating because it was his name on the door, and it really mattered what the purchase experience was going to be like, what the ownership experience was going to be like. And I think we created something that was differentiated and has been now mimicked many, many times. And I think every brand, Willie's his own brand for sure, is responsible for how they're engaging their customers. And so I think utilizing SMS in a helpful way, I think, is fantastic. But utilizing it, we also have seen it go to the other extreme, where there have been overuses of it, where it kind of can drive some dissatisfaction.
I definitely can say from a consumer perspective, I've experienced both sides of the coin. I've bought a product on a social media app, received my product, felt like everything was in line with them even giving me the tracking information, perhaps through SMS and maybe even following up for a review. But then I've also seen it go the other direction where maybe I made a purchase and now every day I'm getting a text of some sort. And they also don't necessarily make it transparent or easy for me to understand how to opt out. I like when I like when a brand says, "Hey, if you want to opt out," right at the beginning, if you want to opt out, just send an S for stop or say no. I
Yeah, you got to
important
make
to
it easy to do that. I mean, and you also have to understand the context of the communication. I mean, if the communication is around, appointment that you have to visit the showroom, I think I expect that you're going to be coordinated. Let me know when it's happening. Let me know if you're running behind. Any of those kinds of things,
Mhm.
are value added. One of the neat uses that we use it a lot is in our fan clubs here. And I don't know how many of your audience knows why one would join a fan club, but the primary reason to join a fan club is because you get early access to the best tickets at the at the concert. And typically what will happen is that we'll get an allocation of 10 to 20% of the best seats in the house, typically as much as 2 weeks before those seats go on public availability.
Yeah.
And we'll let the fan club members know first that those tickets are available, often through SMS. And our response rates are unbelievable because people are
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
lock in the best seats.
Yeah.
Because they're a member of the fan club of their favorite sets of artists for a reason. And so when it connects and it's part of the brand, you feel like an insider and you're happy to get that text. It's more that if it's kind of used for just repeated marketing purposes, sometimes that's where it can go bad.
I feel like you're right. That's where you burn the bridge of trust. No one. I mean, when you went let's say when you went to a brick and mortar store like J.C. Penney, when that was a big place to shop, no one would ever go to a J.C. Penney, shop, use their credit card, and then want to get in the mail, right? The snail mail every single day, some sort of postcard about what's on sale this week at J.C. Penney. Oh, well, come back here. No, here's another catalog. Oh, here's a men's catalog. No one even in that olden kind of example would want to be badgered via snail mail just because you use your credit card for one purchase at a store. So I think
Yes.
it's all
Yeah.
about balance. It's all about understanding who your target demographic is. And we always talk about being where your target demographic is. Now, interestingly enough, we know Willie, he's a great example to kind of talk about. We know that the demographic of his club is probably a pretty wide range. But I would not think of a Willie demographic necessarily being excited about SMS messaging. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe he's an artist that doesn't use that. And he's not a good example of an artist that does use that. Maybe it's I don't know, Cardi B or Dirks Bentley or somebody
Yeah.
else who might use the SMS. But would you say across the board that, when it comes to the sports figures, the NFL people, the artists, that depending on their genre or depending on their target demographic, that you have very different plans
Yeah,
for each of them?
you need to know your audience,
Right.
for sure. But I think you better to know the customer experience that you're creating and
Mhm.
what it feels like on the other side and what you're what you're trying to create end to end. And I think that, to me, if it's something that's thoughtful, then it's going to resonate well with kind of any audience. SMS is easy to ignore too, and so that's fine. And so I would say Willie probably has lower response rates than some of our other acts with respect to that. But we have some other acts that are have an older target audience. We've got on tour right now. We've got Styx. We've got Rod Stewart. We've got Kansas. And they've got great followings. And whenever Kansas is coming into town, they want to let their fans know that they're here and here's what we're doing, and we'd love to have you join us. And it's that to me, that's the cool stuff, that having that direct relationship with your fan base offers that you're not going to get if you're just kind of advertising on Facebook.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, it's making your customer feel valued and feel special. You're ultimately creating a memorable customer experience that literally feels like a VIP experience. And you're right. You're not going to get that with a Facebook fan group. And I do think you're right. It's interesting, this idea of I guess you called it the Web 2.0. Is that what you called it? You're right. I feel like there's also a big thing that can happen now too. There's a lot of opportunities to falsely represent artists and falsely represent brands. It's very easy to create an Instagram account and call it Willie Official Nelson fan page. You know what I mean? You just change a few words around, put a good photo up, and someone may not be able to tell the difference. So I think it's, in today's day and age, one thing you mentioned is you help people to do what they may not be able to do. I think it's just all the more reason to, look for a reputable agency, source something like that out, so that that you're working with somebody like One Live, who has a proven track record and knows how to do it, because that not only frees you up as the business owner, as the founder, as the CEO, to focus on what you need to be focusing on, but obviously as an artist, you can focus on being creative and bringing more value to your fans. I like your tagline. So One Live, I'm going to share it. You guys, it's very easy to find out more about One Live. You're just going to go to onelive.com, but e-commerce that grows with you. How long has your company been around, Tom? How many years have you guys been helping your clients?
Yeah, we started in 2007, so it's
Wow.
it's been a great journey, and I think we've grown with e-commerce and with our clients, and help them solve more and more problems. And technology's gotten a lot better. I mean, part of the reason that we utilize Shopify is it's a fantastic e-commerce platform, and it's constantly evolving to meet the newest needs, challenges, opportunities that exist in the industry. And so we build software that layers on top of Shopify in order to solve the unique needs of the markets that we're serving.
Fantastic. Well, before I let you go, I think we can end our show talking a little bit specifically about Shopify Plus, because you're very well versed in Shopify Plus. If someone is watching this, whether it's video or listening on the podcast, earlier I mentioned that One Live has been responsible for over 1,600 Shopify Plus stores. What are some of the benefits that you experience and that you see using Shopify Plus as the platform for your clients?
Well, it starts with that customer expectation. I mean, you've got Amazon and others, but certainly in the U.S. led by Amazon, creating a customer experience expectation that everybody needs to be able to follow. And so, the great thing that Shopify is doing is really keeping up with that customer experience and integrating the different forms of payments and approaches. Right now, recently added Shopify installment payments, which is basically a buy now, pay later option, which is really popular and important in today's industry. And so I think it starts with a foundation of great cloud software. But what was some of the challenges that existed in the past that just go away with the cloud solution. Uptime, and we have, if when we used to be challenged when Beyonce would drop an album, or Destiny's Child, things would go crazy, and our sites would crash.
Ah,
And that's horrible. That's not the experience that you want. There's a lot that goes into creating these great album drops, and how do you make sure that the brand can take advantage of that moment in time,
right.
because it doesn't last. And so the fact that it's ultimately scalable, that it's modern, it's compliant. Those are the things that we get from it. But the reason we love Shopify Plus is because it's highly customizable. So we're able to actually get in the code. They've already got enterprise integrations with a number of the important order management software, the warehouse management solutions, ERPs that a lot of mid-market and up brands are probably going to be using. And then it's got a number of apps that are specific only to Shopify Plus that are valuable, that can create solutions. And we're fortunate because we have a whole engineering and design team that we probably have solved just about every problem on Shopify that we can creatively help identify the challenge and kind of what the technology solution can be, using it as the nucleus. So it's been a great platform for us. We're also on BigCommerce, so we do offer choice. We're not just one
Great.
solution, but we are big supporters of Shopify Plus.
Well, I want to congratulate you on all of the success that you have had, not only in your career, but also as the CEO of One Live. I think my last question for you before I let you go, Tom, is just I obviously see you look like you're in an office. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things that we wanted to touch upon before we left was this idea of obviously a remote lifestyle that has evolved due to the pandemic. So I do want to ask, what was your work life space, prior to the pandemic, and how has it changed? And do you have any insights as to where you think the world, will go moving forward in terms of the remote world?
Yeah, we were an in-person company, and now have a flexible approach, and I think a lot are going in that direction. I think the more progressive employers are going to need to meet the needs of the top talent in order to attract
Mhm.
top talent, or they're going to go elsewhere. And I think part of that is providing flexible work environments, and what that creates some unique challenges for brands that are serving those consumers. And I think it creates an even more importance on the direct to customer model, where many consumer packaged goods companies are used to shipping full truckloads to retailers and having the retailers take care of distribution and all of that
Yeah.
good stuff. And when you talk about having a pick, pack, ship fulfillment model on a one order at a time, going to one location, a lot of CPG companies break down in that environment. And I think that's the transition that the world is going through. I think every good CPG brand will have both a kind of a indirect and a direct arm, and need to get good at both sides of that equation.
That's funny because just before today's show, I got a delivery from FedEx and I had to answer the door because I knew it was wine and I had to sign for it.
Of course,
But
there you go.
I think, yeah, I think our remote world has also changed our consumer habits. And so, as you mentioned, companies that, produce consumer goods are having to pivot and be able to keep up with the habits that we're now creating, which is probably, well, for me, certainly buying a lot more online and buying a different array of products online because it's convenient. Um, Fantastic, Tom. I want to thank you
Well, it's
so
taught a lot of
much.
people. A lot of people have changed their habits. They're
Yeah,
forced to change their habits, and then they realize throughout that process, hey, this is pretty good. I'll just keep the subscription going.
absolutely. Especially if it
Post the
means I'm
pandemic.
getting ticket alerts, right, to
Yeah,
my
well, there you
favorite
go. Right,
artists,
exactly. Of course. Why
2
not?
weeks before the public.
Yeah,
Gosh.
everybody's going back on tour now. It's a pretty cool time to be in the music space. It's gone from nothing to literally 100%, where all acts are trying to get out there, and the American consumer has saved. Estimates are up to $2.4 trillion in
Wow.
staying at home and not traveling, which is going to go back into the consumer economy. And so
Yeah.
we're seeing our ticket inventory sell out in record times, which is great. I mean, it's great for those acts. They've struggled, and so it's good to see um, it moving up and to the right.
Well, I'm a huge music lover. I remember just 2 summers before the pandemic, I started this thing where I promised myself for 6 months when the weather was warm, I wanted to go to 1 concert a month. So like 6 concerts in a row, like basically, I don't know, April through like September or something like that, whatever 6-month marks the kind of warm time of the year. And I did that for the 2 years leading up to the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened and I was like, oh my God, am I going to survive? Like this was something I really enjoyed. And if I could get some winter concerts in it, I would as well. But nothing like seeing Zach Brown band, right? In an amphitheater or
There you go.
you're a Willie Nelson, right? In a cool
Yeah.
outdoor venue. It's just so much fun. Well, listen,
Well,
Tom,
Zach
I want
Brown's
to
one of ours as well, so
I
we
know,
we
I
love it.
know.
Yeah.
Fun story just to make this a little more personal. I met Zach Brown before he was as known as he was when he did a concert on the Leonard Skinner Rock the Boat
Oh, nice.
tour. And I have pictures of myself with him. He played not on the main stage, but in like a little kind of like club on the ship, and I saw him 2 nights in a row and I was working on the ship doing a promotion. So we actually got to like kind of talk and hang out. And it's just been so cool to see his career grow. And, again, it's not easy. Everybody's got to put in the work. And I know having a team like One Live behind them has certainly helped them,
It's been a great
especially.
partnership. They're very
Yeah.
entrepreneurial, and doing lots of things in e-commerce beyond just music, and it's been great to be part of that.
Speaking of, other things, they do wine too. They've got a wine label, I think. I know all these things. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, Tom, I want to share with our audience how they can connect with you. If you want to connect with Tom, maybe because something today, struck your interest and you want to kind of pick his brain, or maybe you want to know more about One Live, maybe you're interested in partnering with his company, you can find him on LinkedIn. Is to search Thomas M. West. That's ThomasW. No, M middle initial West, Thomas M. West on LinkedIn. And again, please check out onelive.com for more information, especially if you are someone who thinks that One Live could be of service to your brand. Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you for an episode of Digital Marketing Intelligence for Shopify. Thank you for being our expert and teaching us a little bit more about how the pandemic has changed really the future, not only for your brands, but brands all over the world, brands in all kinds of niches. I never know how to say that word, but also thanks for helping us understand how we can be more proactive and really work with the changes and be successful.
Awesome. This was fun. Thank you. Appreciate you having
Absolutely. I
me.
wish you continued success and appreciate your insights and time for today's show.
Thank you.
What an amazing show. Tom West from One Live. I like this. The company has been around for like almost 20 years. They're helping not only professional athletes and artists and musicians, but of course, consumer goods and service brands as well. Um, Not only pivot during this crazy 2 years that we've had, but also find ways to create an amazing customer experience, whether that's through SMS messaging or these cool VIP clubs. This only brings home, this idea that the customer experience is ultimately what's going to give your brand the competitive edge, especially in this digital transformation and in this era of growth for direct to consumer brands. So cool. Make sure you check out onelive.com, connect with Thomas M. West on LinkedIn. Make sure if you connect, you drop him a note that you saw him on the Engage Digital Marketing Show. As always, this has been a pleasure. I'm your host, Marissa Morgan. If you yourself have a store on Shopify, or maybe you're an agency owner, or maybe you want to come on and talk about how you've pivoted during the last 2 years of the pandemic and how you've made different strides in your digital marketing strategy, we would love to have you on the show as a guest. Feel free to message me, marissa.m, M-A-R-I-S-S-A.m at engage.com, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do a search for the Marissa Morgan. And then please also connect with us on LinkedIn as well. Engage, N-G-A-G-G-E. Look for the rainbow colored cogwheel. And don't forget to stay tuned because our Engage SMS messaging for Shopify stores app is dropping in May of 2022. And of course, if you're interested in trying it, we're giving you 500 free messages to take for a test drive. Again, what a wonderful show. I want to thank you all for joining me for Digital Marketing Intelligence for Shopify. Ask the Experts. I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.